Hey there, and welcome. So, you've been thinking about starting a podcast, right? But maybe you feel a little lost, a little overwhelmed by where to even begin? Well, you're in the right place. We are going to cut right through all that noise and give you a super clear, actionable roadmap to launch a show that doesn't just start, but one that actually lasts. Okay, let's get into it.
First things first, let's talk about why this is even worth your time. See this number? 546 million. That is the estimated number of podcast listeners around the globe. To put that in perspective, that's a bigger audience than the entire population of the United States. It's this massive, growing world just waiting for new voices, and that includes yours.
But here comes the reality check, and you gotta know this going in. There's this thing called pod fading. And as you can see, a pretty shocking 90% of new podcasts never even make it past their third episode. They launch with all this energy and excitement, and then, poof, they're gone. Getting past that initial hurdle is the big challenge we're gonna solve today.
Now, this is where things get really interesting, because this quote completely reframes that scary statistic. Instead of worrying about the 90% that fail, look at the goal here. It's not about becoming a viral sensation overnight. It's just about persistence. If you can get to episode 21, you are already in the top 1%. All of a sudden, success seems way less about luck and a whole lot more about having a good plan.
So that brings us to the big question, doesn't it? How do you actually build a show that has the staying power to get to episode 21 and keep on going? Well, I promise you, it's not magic. It's just a mix of a solid strategy, the right tools for the job, and a little bit of polish. So let's break down that blueprint right now.
So our first big stop is the blueprint. You know, so many people get all excited about buying a fancy microphone and hitting record, but the podcasts that truly last, they're built on a rock-solid foundation of strategy. This is the homework you do before class even starts, and it makes all the difference.
So what even is a content strategy? Honestly, just think of it like a mini business plan for your show. It's a simple guide that makes you answer the most important questions before you ever record a single word. You know, who are you actually talking to? What is this show really about? Where are people going to find it? When can they expect new episodes? Why are you even doing this? And how are you going to pull it all together? Answering these questions now is what stops you from burning out later.
And here's the path to get it done. Building your strategy really comes down to these 6 steps. You start with your goals and your audience, knowing why you're doing this and who you're doing it for. Then, you scope out the competition to see where there's a gap, which helps you to find your unique niche, and only then do you start planning out your actual episodes. The last piece, which so many people forget, is distribution. How are you going to get the show in front of all those people you just defined back in step 2? See? Each step just builds right on top of the last one.
All right, with our strategy locked in, let's talk about the fun part, the gear. This is where a lot of people get stuck, thinking they need a professional studio that costs thousands of dollars. But let's just demystify what you actually need to get started. I think you'll be surprised.
Honestly, this is it. These are the 4 things you absolutely need. A decent mic, a pair of closed-back headphones so you can hear yourself, a computer or even just your smartphone, and some software to record and edit. That's the whole list. You really don't need a broadcast studio to sound fantastic.
Now, your first big decision is probably going to be the microphone. For most people starting out, a USB mic is perfect. It is so simple. You just plug it right into your computer and you're good to go. Down the line, you might want to upgrade to an XLR mic. They give you more control and pro-level quality, but they need a little box called an audio interface to work. You know, a great option that's kind of the best of both worlds is a mic like the Samson Q2U. It has both connections, so it can actually grow with you.
And this little chart here is super helpful for seeing how it all comes together. As you can see, if it's just you recording solo at home, that beginner kit is all you'll ever need. If you're doing remote interviews, don't overthink it. Your guests can literally just use the microphone on their phone to start. And if your show is more on the go, a portable recorder can turn pretty much any place into a studio. The gear should always serve your show's format, never the other way around.
Okay, you've got the gear. Now let's talk about the polish. This is what separates a podcast that sounds like a hobby from one that sounds like a pro show. And the best part, it's not about spending more money. It's all about technique and just understanding a few key ideas about sound. These 3 rules right here will improve your sound quality more than any expensive microphone ever will. First, get your mic technique down. You want to be about 4 to 6 inches away and speak slightly across the top of the mic, not directly into it. Second, your room matters. A walk-in closet full of clothes is way better than a big empty kitchen because all those soft surfaces soak up echo.
And third, always, and I mean always, wear headphones when you record. It's the only way to know what your microphone is actually hearing.
Okay, let's get just a tiny bit technical for a second, but I promise this is so important for sounding professional. LUFS. It stands for loudness units relative to full scale, but all you really have to know is that this is how the pros measure loudness. Hitting the right LUFS target means your listeners aren't constantly adjusting their volume knob. It makes for a much better, much more consistent experience for them.
So, what is that magic number? Well, the industry standard for most places, like Apple Podcasts, is right around -16 LUFs. Spotify's a little louder at -14. And just remember, with negative numbers, -14 is actually louder than -16. The really good news, though, is that you don't need to be an audio engineer. Most editing software has a simple button you can press to hit these targets automatically. And here is the other number to remember, -1 decibel. This should be your true peak level. What's that mean? Well, think of it like a ceiling that your audio's loudest parts can never hit. Setting this peak prevents any nasty distortion or clipping, and it makes sure your show sounds clean and professional, whether someone's listening on cheap earbuds or expensive speakers.
All right, let's shift gears and talk about a topic that a lot of creators kinda ignore until it's too late: the legal stuff. Now, this isn't meant to scare you at all. It's just about being smart and protecting all the hard work you're about to put in.
A really common question is about using clips from movies or TV shows, and the rules can be tricky. In the UK, you have fair dealing, which is pretty specific. In the US, there's fair use, which is a bit more flexible, but it's also a lot riskier because it's a defense you have to argue in court after you've already been sued. The main takeaway here is that neither one is a get-out-of-jail-free card to use whatever you want.
And this quote says it all, especially when it comes to music. Let me be really clear. The music industry is very active about policing this stuff. The penalties can be huge. Even just a few seconds of a famous song can get your episode taken down or, way worse, land you in some serious legal trouble. It is just not worth the risk.
So here's a super simple legal checklist to keep you safe. Number 1, always get consent from your guest to be recorded. A simple signed release is your best bet. 2, only use music from licensed or royalty-free websites. 3, double-check your facts to avoid any defamation issues. And lastly, just remember your podcast is out there for the whole world to hear, which means laws from other countries could apply to you.
And that brings us to the end game for a lot of podcasters: monetization. How do you take this passion project and turn it into something that can pay for itself or maybe even become a real business? Let's focus on the most common way to do that: sponsorships.
Getting a sponsor isn't some dark art. It's a pretty clear 5-step process. It all starts with really knowing your audience, inside and out, so you can prove your show's value. Then you package all that info into a professional media kit. From there, you go find brands that are a natural fit for your listeners, you write them a personalized pitch, and then you negotiate the deal. The whole idea is simple. You're showing a brand why your audience is also their audience.
And hey, once you land that sponsor, the work's not over. The real key to long-term success is keeping them happy. Deliver on what you promised, be transparent about how the ads are doing, and just treat them like a real partner. A happy sponsor doesn't just pay for one campaign, they come back again and again.
So there you have it. We've covered the whole blueprint, from strategy all the way to monetization. You now have the tools, you have the knowledge to be in that 10% of podcasts that actually make it. You're ready to blow past episode 3 to aim for episode 21 and to build something that really has staying power. The only question left is, what story are you going to tell?